Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. In today's video, I'm going to be providing a longer term market analysis update for Looksrare. I'm going to talk about this longer term range that Looksrare has been in. I'll cover some expectations I have with Looksrare into the next several months, and then I'm also going to be providing my fundamental analysis, which I think is fairly important for some of the more newer tokens, especially when we don't have too much price history. With Looksrare, we really just have a launch from during the bear market and then the bear market bleed like many other altcoins, Bitcoin and Ethereum, and now we're just stuck in a range. So I think that fundamental perspective can be pretty important when we do have limited price action to look to. If you guys enjoyed the content, make sure to leave a like and subscribe. Also, by the way, I will leave a link to my Twitter page in the description below. Feel free to go ahead and check that out as well. I'm fairly active over there with crypto content. So with Looksrare, we really don't have too much price action, a little bit over a year here, with the launch being right here in March of 2022, which is actually some pretty unfortunate timing because this was more or less when the bear market really started to kick off, and we had a lot of that declining price action in the majors, altcoins taking a big hit, and of course Looksrare followed suit. It did have some earlier price action history, but this chart doesn't go all the way back. I know it had a peak in the $7 to $8 range, so it is down quite significantly, and now it's just in this longer term range. It's got support right here at 12 cents and then resistance right around 40 cents. So it is a pretty wide range, but for some of these smaller market cap tokens, I think that is a fairly reasonable range, and it does have a little bit more volatility. So just expect that with some of these altcoins. Again, pretty much just going from the range highs down to the range lows to the range highs, now back at the range lows. So there really isn't too much to take away here with the longer term direction, because it's for the most part just been sideways, and it has been sideways since back here in June of 2022. Yes, it's made a lower low, but really not a substantial one at that, and we're really just kind of oscillating from, again, support into resistance. And what we can take away with Looksrare is really, if we have a breakout above the range, that gets very bullish. That's the point that we want to see for the bulls, to have some continuation to the upside and potentially reversing that bear market trend. If we make a lower low, that's really pretty bearish, especially given the fact that most other altcoins are up substantially after those. So that's not something that we want to see. We don't want to see another retest of this 12-cent low, and we especially don't want to see the price and the weekly closes come back and lose that as support, because at that point that would form a new all-time low, and that would open up price discovery to the downside, where there really isn't any concrete levels of support that we can look to further below 12 cents. Of course, that's not the case so far. We're still holding that as support. In fact, we do have a bounce off of that from back here in March. So as the chart stands right now, there really isn't too much to be bearish on. The only bearish situation and outcome would be if we're losing that range low and that support at 12 cents. And until then, we're really just neutral here. Again, we're still in this longer term range. We're still pretty much consolidating, and we need to see a breakout above the range highs to flip bullish. So for example, looking out here into the next few months, that would potentially look something like this, where maybe we do have an eventual rally back up and retesting the range highs, and then at some point or another we would want to see a breakout coming back above this level, and then ideally flipping that into support. And if we can get something like this develop, that's when I get really bullish, because that would exit this longer term range of a consolidation, reverse that longer term bear market trend, and then really just give us the momentum back to the upside. But there's a lot of things that have to happen before we can get this on the chart. So again, I'm going to be neutral, and I'm going to be continuing to be neutral for a long period of time with Looksrare, as long as we remain within this range. So that is where I stand with Looksrare from the technical analysis perspective. Now I want to provide my fundamental analysis, which I think could help explain some of the reasons why we're still within this longer term range, and why Looksrare really hasn't seen too much traction over the last few months. It is down from its January and February highs quite significantly, and I did want to provide some perspectives to help consider what we might expect with the Looks token. So the first view I want to show, and this is a graph I found on Twitter from CoinGecko, and this is just going to show us all of the NFT marketplaces, and basically with this pie chart, it's giving us how much volume each of the exchanges has, and you can see that trend month over month. So with this, we can see Blur is pretty dominant here, 71.8% of the NFT marketplace volume. I wouldn't pay attention to this number too much, because it is quite skewed, just given all of the bidding surrounding Blur, with a lot of people trying to farm the next season's airdrop. So just kind of ignore that and realize that it is much lower than this, because a lot of that volume is pretty much wash trading and just farming for the airdrop. So I would disregard this as a significant number. It is probably pretty similar to Opensea. I do think that they have fairly equal levels of volume, but you can see that there are still a lot of marketplaces ahead of Looksrare, given that Looksrare only has 0.5% of the NFT marketplace volume. And again, this is just data from CoinGecko. I think they're a fairly reliable and reputable source. If you want to find a different graph, you could probably have numbers a little bit different. But the point here is that Looksrare is not on top in the NFT marketplaces, and it hasn't been on top. Given here, you can see the month over month moves. It has been relatively stagnant at a pretty small portion of total NFT volume, which I do think is a relatively large problem for Looksrare, just given that its entire staking model really depends on volume. It depends on a lot of active users because all of those marketplace fees go directly to the stakers. And if the stakers are earning less because there's less volume on the NFT marketplace, then they might just be discouraged to hold the token and stake it and more likely to sell it on the market. So of course that would drive the price down, and really all of this is going to get more and more developed if we have Looksrare losing market share, losing a lot of that volume. So that's not something that we want to see. We want to see this start to trend back up where Looksrare does start to gain a lot more volume, a lot more market share in the NFT marketplaces. And I think one of the reasons that people might hold the Looksrare token, apart from the staking rewards and the fact that it is a great platform, it is a great marketplace, is just to gain general NFT exposure. But the fact is that Blur is a much larger NFT marketplace and they have their own token. And X2Y2 is also a much larger marketplace, and it also has its own token. So you're dealing with a lot of competition here, and you're also dealing with competition on marketplace fees where Blur doesn't have fees for traders, and Looksrare's entire model depends on fees. So, there's a lot of things that go into how Looksrare is performing with respect to other NFT marketplaces and why it might have this lower relative volume. So that's just something to consider with the fundamentals. And again, I don't think that Looksrare is a bad platform by any means. I've used it. I really do like the user experience. But the fact is that the market is just saying that Opensea, Blur, and X2Y2 are just better NFT marketplaces because that's where the greater volume is. And of course, that could obviously change. I do think that Looksrare does have a chance to gain back some of that market share. And if it does, that would really start to have a positive catalyst for the price action, where maybe this is a scenario where we see that traction to the upside, that momentum where we might start to break out and then trend back up in a new bull cycle. But until we start to see that trend develop, I really have to look at the fundamentals and just say, if I want exposure to the NFT marketplaces, if I want exposure to the NFT ecosystem, I could probably just invest in Blur and outperform just because of how much better it has been doing in terms of overall volume. So that's my perspective on the fundamentals and the technicals. I hope you guys did enjoy the content and the analysis, and as always, I will see you in the next one.